Hi, this is a video looking at EDUQAS examiner feedback tips and advice for the Paper 1 reading fiction exam. So the examining report and training days I've been to, I've come up with this video basically saying what students do well, but probably more importantly for you, the main mistakes to avoid to do well in your exam. So Paper 1 reading, successful reading responses were focused and concise where necessary. Good candidates selected relevant material from the specified section of the text and used it effectively. So Paper 1 reading, what are the most common mistakes? A lot of candidates omit question 5 on this component. It's the final question in the exam, it's worth 10. And the main reason for that is that students who struggle tend to spend too long on the lower mark questions at the expense of the higher tariff question. Questions 1 and 2 are out of 5, 3, 4 and 5 are all out of 10. So logically, you need to spend longer on the 10 mark questions than you do on the 5 mark ones. So question 1 is the bullet point question. So for example, list 5 things we find out about the character. Reminder to separate points on different lines, so one line per bullet point. Must use the name or pronoun in each point. So for example, if it was a character called Tom, you'd either put Tom or he, or whatever pronoun he chooses. Stress the importance of using quotations. So quotations in your bullet points. And clarity and precision are the key qualities in this type of response. The main mistake people make on question 1 is that less successful answers were imprecise and or points did not make sense of the context of the question and specified lines. So remember, in the reading 1 fiction exam, the questions are lines. So question 1, if it's read lines 1 to 10, make sure you don't give an answer from line 11. It sounds obvious, but if you had a group of 20 students, at least a couple of them will give me an answer from outside the specified lines. So questions 2, 3, 4 and 5, basically picking out quotes and saying why the writers used them. Focus on point and evidence. Don't have to write a massive explanation. Take your quotes, range across the whole contents of the extract. So if it's lines 10 to 45, and you're doing 6 quotes for a 10 mark question, 2 from the start, 2 from the middle, 2 from the end as a guideline. Candidates should try to track the test methodically, so some sort of method, normally chronologically through the text, to select details relevant to the question, commenting where necessary. In order to gain good or full marks, it's important to give details so that the answers are both clear and precise. And one way of doing this is that in your quotes, make sure you don't take fragments of your quotes. So it's important that you give a lot of context to the quote, or just write out the whole quote. So obviously we don't want quotes that have 2 or 3 sentences long, but 1 sentence is absolutely fine. So what they say, the examiners, in their desire to avoid long quotations, candidates sometimes offer only fragments with no explanation, which don't really give the examiner any clarity of what their point is. So to summarize that a bit easier for you, don't just put a fragment of the quote, write enough to give context, 1 sentence is fine. So say if I had this is actually a paper 2 question, but it's the same argument. So say if the question, this was an extract about a really tough prison. Say if the question was, how does the writer show that the prisoners live in extremely tough and punishing conditions? And the quote was that the men lived in cages. If my answer was, the writer shows the prisoners live in tough conditions, as it says cages, this suggests they're being treated not as humans, but like animals. So because I've just put the word, I've not really said I haven't given context. Is it that they are sometimes put in cages? Do they have food in cages? Do they live in cages? Well, actually, the whole quote is the men lived in cages. So I've done my same answer, but just by doing the whole quote, the men lived in cages, it's telling the examiner what I'm talking about. It's giving the examiner context. To the impressions question, which basically means the opinion you have of a character or place, the better the answers were concise but clear, seeing the essential features of the character. And for question 5, this is the one where you get a made-up student quote. So for example, it might say, in the extract, I thought Tom was a very brave character. How far do you agree? So the examiner says never completely disagree. There will all be something to agree with. They actually suggested completely agreeing with it. And what they also say is answers which agree and disagree made them being contradictory, so argue against each other. So they actually say don't particularly disagree, just stick to agree. All your quotes should show that you agree. Okay, so that's it. Hopefully that's been of some use to you. Good luck to you in your exams.